Hello, I'm Brooke Barnes. I'm with the Scott County Health Department. Public Health, Genesis Health System, Unity Point Health Trinity, and Community Healthcare have assembled a panel of local pediatricians to discuss the COVID-19 vaccine that is currently under review by the FDA and the CDC for children ages 5 to 11. We know the COVID-19 pandemic has been extremely challenging for families in our community, and they've had to make difficult decisions about the health and safety of their children. And now they're faced with yet another decision about a new vaccine. But we hope that the information that we're sharing from these pediatricians today will help inform you about the vaccine that will likely be available in our community in the upcoming days. I'd like to introduce our panel of pediatricians. We have Dr. Swetha Candula, a pediatrician with Community Healthcare. We have Dr. Julie Stecker with Genesis Health System and Dr. Sachin Nanowar with Unity Point Health Trinity. So thank you all for inviting us and participating in this event today. We'll go ahead and get started so that we can get through with the number of questions that we know are on the minds of parents and caregivers in our community. So first, we'll start with Dr. Candula. Which COVID-19 vaccine is being reviewed currently for children ages 5 to 11? And what is that review process that's taking place?
So it is the Pfizer vaccine that has been submitted for approval, and it is the same vaccine that got initially the emergency use authorization, and it's the one that got the full authorization in August. And the review process, so first the vaccine manufacturers submit the results of the trials to the FDA. And FDA has an advisory panel who review the whole process thoroughly, and then they make their recommendations to the FDA's approval committee. And after the FDA has given their approval, then it's submitted to the advisory committee of the CDC, and then the final recommendations come down from the CDC.
Thank you. So quite a process it's going through right now. Dr. Stecker, on the minds of families everywhere, how do we know that COVID-19 vaccines are safe for kids? Was there enough representation of the population to really help determine those safety questions that families have?
Yes, so over 2,000 children in this age group from 5 to 11 were studied for several months after getting the vaccine. The vaccine is over 90% effective at preventing any symptomatic infection in that group, and over 100% effective in preventing severe disease in that group that was studied. Significant side effects were very rare, and there were no cases of myocarditis or the heart inflammation that's been making the news a little bit in this group that was studied. So at this point in time, with the information that we know, the risks and benefits, the benefit of the vaccine definitely outweighs any risks that we've seen so far.
Great. Dr. Nanowar, what are the possible side effects of the vaccine in children, especially this age group?
Like any other vaccine, this vaccine will have the similar side effects like a sore arm, some redness, fever, headache, chills. And also in the adolescent age group, they have reported, like with the mRNA vaccine, there were reported cases of myocarditis and pericarditis, but those are very rare, and and those are completely recovered in most of the cases. So the common side effect would be sore arm, headache, myalgia, sore throat, and chills.
So they tend to be anything we would be looking for would really be in the short term, and that there's not long-term concerns with this.
You're right.
Thank you. Dr. Candula, one of the things, these are much smaller kiddos than those who've been vaccinated so far. What dosage of the vaccine would children get?
So the adults got the 30 micrograms dose, but kids in this age group, the 5 to 11-year-olds, will get a third of that dose. So it's 10 micrograms, and it's 0.2 ml if you look at the volume. And to avoid the confusion, they have manufactured these with an orange top and label. And that is the dose for each dose, and they'll get 2 doses 3 weeks apart.
Okay, so somewhat similar process to how the adults were getting vaccinated.
Yes.
So Dr. Stecker, one of the things we're hearing a lot is about these being new vaccines, but as we've been trying to educate on the mRNA vaccines, while the technology being used for this specific virus is different, this is something that's been around. Can you help families understand the difference really between the mRNA and the other types of, like the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine that's out there, which is considered a viral vector vaccine?
Yes, so both the mRNA, which is the Pfizer, the one that would be approved at this point for the 5 to 11, and the viral vector vaccines contain instructions that teach your cells how to create the spike protein that's on the surface of the COVID molecule. So our cells produce those spike proteins to the immune system so that we can develop a good response, so that if you come into contact with the coronavirus out in the community, that your body would be able to remember that and fight it off. So the mRNA vaccine, it's surrounded by tiny lipids that help it get into your cell, but not into the nucleus where your own DNA is, just in the outside of the cell. So then that can teach your body how to make those antibodies to that. The viral vector is where there's actual DNA from the virus is placed inside of a modified version of another virus that cannot cause any illness. So slightly different, but they both create the same antibody response.
Gotcha, thank you. Dr. Nanowar, the question that I think most parents have on their mind right now is, should my child get the COVID-19 vaccine? So this is your chance to talk to all of the kiddos in our community and our families.
Absolutely. I'll be more than happy to answer these questions. And we are getting a lot of these questions a lot. and I think the parents are more excited about the 5 to 11 year vaccine. And yes, definitely, because the children should get vaccinated. The more vaccinated adults and the children in our communities, in our schools, and at extracurricular activities, the more likely it is that we will stop the spread of the COVID-19. Vaccination not only protects your family, but will also help keep our schools, our teachers, and our communities safe. So as we know that COVID can cause like a milder infection in the kids, but even the mild infection has high risk of developing MISC, which is multi-inflammatory syndrome, where it affects the multiple organs of the body, including the kidneys, liver, and multi-systems. So I think there have been 5,000 cases reported so far with MISC, and the most common age group is age 9. So definitely the vaccine will prevent the transmission of the infection in the community, as well as it will protect you against this deadly virus. So definitely your kid should get the vaccine.
Thank you for, again, sharing those risks of the actual virus and the illness itself too. I think that's important to keep in mind. And if there are children that might have a pre-existing condition, what will be your advice to them if you have families who are asking about the vaccine for their children?
Yeah, I mean, as you know that the children with obesity, asthma, chronic lung disease, or any immunocompromised condition where they require longer steroid treatment, or the children with the cancer, they are at high risk of developing COVID-19. So they should definitely get vaccinated.
So additional risks there and benefits to the being vaccinated. Thank you. Dr. Candula, should someone, if they're believing that they want to look into long-term side effects, is that a reason that they shouldn't be getting those vaccines right now, or should they be looking to, see the benefits of what we're seeing right now and get vaccinated?
So to answer this question, I would just like to give a little bit background on the vaccine monitoring for the other vaccines that we have been doing over the years. So it has historically shown that side effects generally happen within 6 weeks of receiving the final dose of a vaccine. And that's why FDA has required each of the authorized COVID-19 vaccines to be studied for at least 2 months, which is about 8 weeks or more after the final dose. Given that we are still in a pandemic level of infection and seeing new cases and new variants which are more contagious and virulent, and now that we have a vaccine that has proven to be safe and effective, and definitely the benefits outweigh the risks, we should go ahead and get the younger kids vaccinated.
Thank you. Dr. Stecker, and I don't even know if you'll agree to this question, but it says, if it's true that COVID doesn't affect kids as much, why is a vaccine necessary? I'm assuming your office has been pretty busy with sick kiddos this year and the last year.
Yes, we definitely have. And Dr. Nanowar touched a lot on this as well. Historically, fewer children have tested positive for COVID compared to the adults, but they've also still suffered severe illness. And the children are important vectors of transmitting the virus, even if they're asymptomatic. So a lot of times they're the ones giving it to others without necessarily knowing that they were sick. The Delta variant is more highly contagious, and now we're seeing kids be infected at the same rates as the adults as well. So when children are ill, they have to miss school and activities. So even if they're not very ill, they're missing all of these things, and those are crucial to their development and their mental health. So less days missing that is important for them. But they're also being hospitalized with COVID-19, which is traumatic to a kid. If you've ever spent any time with a kid in a hospital, that's no easy thing for them to do. And many children have died from COVID. Despite the numbers are less than adults, it's between the sixth to the eighth leading cause of childhood death since the pandemic has started. And I don't know about you, but I don't think any child death is acceptable. So the number to me, I would love it to be 0.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Dr. Nanowar, as we look as kids do get vaccinated, does that mean they're going to stop wearing masks right away? Does that reduce the risk that's still in our community?
Not quite yet. As Dr. Stecker mentioned, that the Delta variant is very contagious and it still allows vaccinated people to possibly spread the virus. We are hoping to get to that point soon where we won't need masks as we do now. While we are still in a high transmission of the virus in our communities, it is still best to wear the mask indoors, whether you are vaccinated or not.
So really, anytime they're still gathering in groups and things like that, it'll still be important.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Candula, tell us, how does this help make a difference in ending the pandemic?
Vaccination can give a reliable and persistent immune response or antibody levels than natural immunity following an infection. And if we can achieve above 80 to 85% vaccination rates in our communities, then the rates of infection will decline and we can have a sooner return to normalcy. We want our kids to be able to have play dates or be able to go to their after school activities or participate in sports. And with the winter coming up, the amount of stuff they can do outdoors is limited. So this is the way to have a return to normalcy soon.
We wanted to end with one last question that I know as a parent, I've asked my child's pediatrician this as well, but just in terms of any type of health things. If you had a child this age, would you be vaccinating your own child with this new vaccine? Why don't we start with Dr. Candula?
Absolutely, yes. And I do have a child in this age group and definitely we are getting it as soon as it's available. I feel very guilty for having said no to several play dates and I just want to make sure. And I have felt very, very worried when we had the symptoms and we had to go through the test and the amount of time you spend waiting for the results, checking my phone every hour to see if it's negative. I just don't want to go through that anymore. So definitely going for it.
Dr. Stecker, can we ask you the same question?
Yes, absolutely. I have 2 of my 3 children are in this age group, so we will be first in line when it's officially approved.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Nanowar?
Yes, definitely. I have 2 children in this age group too. So I told my staff they will be the first one to get the vaccine in our clinic.
Well, thank you to our providers for sharing information on such a critical topic. It's also very timely. For parents and caregivers watching this, please make time to have that conversation with your child's healthcare provider. Based on those we've spoken with just today, they're all happy to give you the same information as well as advice on the particular health history of your child to make that informed decision. It's important to ask questions and get answers from trusted sources. And more information on this topic can be found from the Scott County and Rock Island County Health Department websites, as well as the CDC's website. So now for our partners on the call, we do have media partners here. We'll go ahead and entertain any questions if you do have those. It looks like a couple have maybe popped in here, so let me get through to those and we'll work with our partners on this. It says, what do we tell people who point to breakthrough cases? We haven't been able to share specific information from our hospital systems, but what can we do and talk about in terms of breakthrough cases? And if we're seeing those individuals, whether it's children or adults, are they as ill as the ones we had been seeing before? Or does this just tell us that if we have more vaccinated people, we're going to have more potential breakthroughs? Dr. Stecker, do you want to start with that question?
Sure. So not every vaccine is going to be the 100% effective, and that's why we're looking to the high, then over 90% effective as far as preventing any symptomatic infection, but there certainly can be breakthrough infections. We definitely seen with the rates of hospitalizations that there's very few that have been vaccinated that are getting hospitalized or having significant symptoms. So still vaccinating is your best chance of protection to get against having any severe infection. And the higher rates of vaccination we have, the less virus there is to spread in the community. So the less chance that you'd come into contact with it and have a breakthrough infection as well.
Thank you. A couple of these questions are probably more to the broader systems, but we do have you on the call, so we'll try to ask a couple of these. With vaccine eligibility expanding hopefully very soon, what does this mean for vaccine efforts? So I don't know if we can speak at least for the 3 systems we have on here, if you have ideas for how they'll be pushing the vaccines out. Will it be through the providers' offices, or do you know if it will be through one site? We can start with Dr. Nanowar for Unity Point.
Yeah, as far as I know, I mean, we are going to do the vaccination in our clinic. And I personally feel that I think the parents are more comfortable doing in the pediatric office setting because, you know, in this age group, we have to administer the vaccine if the children are very small into their thighs. And parents have been asking that. And I think we will do it in our pediatric office as well as at some urgent care locations. But you can find more information from our media relations and administrative staff. So definitely we are doing it in our office.
Thank you. For Genesis, Dr. Stecker, is it around the same?
Initially, it is going to be through the Genesis mass vaccine clinic at the Lombard location. So we have secured over 3,300 doses currently, and then it will eventually be in our pediatric offices, but we cannot handle the volume of everybody wanting to get it just in our offices.
Gotcha. And Dr. Candula, I know CHC has had some of those conversations as well.
Yes, for us also, we are planning to start in our clinics, and like for the older age groups and adults, we have conducted several vaccination clinics. So that would also be another option we would be looking at.
Thank you. Another question, when the vaccines first become available, certain folks are encouraged to get the first available. Can parents be more picky and wait for certain brands? I know so far we've only heard for Pfizer, so I don't know if any of you have read up on some of the other vaccines, but it's my knowledge that right now Pfizer will be the only option. Is that correct?
That is right.
Okay, so for right now, the best one will be the one that's available for you. And I'm seeing some county questions. So I know we also have our Rock Island County Health Department counterpart here. And so they'll be doing things a little bit differently between the 2 counties. And I can speak for Scott County Health Department that we will be working with our providers, which we have here on the call for you, to make sure that it gets into those areas where they can be getting it through their routine providers. So whether it's through Genesis, through their system there, or through the doctor's offices, that's where it will go initially. Nita, I know you're on the call. I don't know if you would like to answer that for the county for Rock Island.
Sure, I will answer that. I was just about to type it into the chat, but this is easier. For Rock Island County Health Department, we have ordered the pediatric Pfizer, expecting to give it here at the Rock Island County Health Department. And initially those, they will be by appointments for those 5 to 11-year-olds because they will be in our downstairs clinic. And, you know, with children, we are going to try to manage that flow a little bit better with the amount of vaccine that we have. So those will be appointments. As soon as we get the green light, we will put out a press release all about it.
Thank you. We have another question here that's talking about the dosage, and that will be, you know, some questions there since this is a bit more age specific. So for the 5 to 11 age groups, dose is significantly smaller than the 12 plus groups dose, but there isn't a great amount of difference between 11 and 12-year-olds. So why is that dosage so important? I don't know if anybody wants to take that one first.
I can take that one.
Okay.
So in this age group, there definitely have been some smaller 5-year-olds and bigger 11-year-olds. And yes, there's not much of a difference between 11 and 12-year-olds. But the other part of this study was that they have compared the immune response in this age group to the older kids. And even with this dose, the antibody response has been comparable with the higher dose. So I would say it is still good to go ahead with the current dose for the 11-year-olds.
Thank you. And I don't know if any of you have come across this question yet or been thinking about it yourselves, but how would you convince a parent to vaccinate their child if they're not vaccinated yet themselves? I don't know if anybody's had that question come up to them yet or wants to try to have a response for this.
I mean, as Dr. Stecker mentioned, and I mentioned before that, you know, more the vaccinated younger kids and the adults in our community, more freely they can participate in all the activities, extracurricular activities, more that they can interact, and it's good for their social, mental, and well-being as well as with everything, So we have seen a lot of children with, mental problems because when the COVID started, a lot of them were homebound, and it affected their, curricular as well as extracurricular performance. So with the vaccine, you will have more confidence, and they can, freely play outside with some confidence. So I would highly recommend the parents who themselves are not vaccinated, but give a chance to your child to get that vaccine and give them some immunity so that, they can participate and do those things with confidence.
Most definitely. Last question that we have is, when do you think children will start to be vaccinated? And I know, at least since vaccine is still flowing to public health, we're hoping as soon as potentially next week, but we'll be waiting for that final approval from the ACIP as well as the CDC's general recommendation. So we'll wait till both health departments give us that green light, but then we hope to very soon be able to get that vaccine out there. So it looks like we have one more question. And I think Dr. Nanowar did address this, but we can just repeat it again. Do you expect masks to still be recommended for vaccinated children?
Yes, for sure.
Yes, so until really we're seeing the number of cases as well as the positivity rate get down to a much lower level, CDC will still have that recommendation out there, generally for areas that have high transmission, but they've continued to recommend that masks be recommended in all areas where children are in school, childcare, those types of things. So thank you to our, I muted myself, sorry about that. Thank you to pediatricians for all of your time. We know that you're getting into that busy cold, flu, all of those seasons there. I'm assuming we're all in agreement of get your flu vaccine as well. So look for those things to be coming. But we're very grateful for all of the advice and the consistency that you've been providing our community throughout this challenging time, and for having you on here today. We're very grateful. So thank you so much. Thank you to our media partners for helping to share this information. And we will get the link to this posted very shortly on the Scott County Health Department website. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.